This incredible community that has been brought together by Shiv, by Amit, and Greg, I really want to acknowledge all of you being in the room for the full day, because it's a lot, but I really want to have a little bit of real talk, because you heard from Pete, and I love what you had to say. Privacy is dead, but at the end of the day, if you are a corporate officer, and if you are not acting as a fiduciary, you might not have a job. So Shiv, let's talk to you. You serve on the board of United Rentals. What is the perspective that you're seeing, not just as an officer of a public company, but also just kind of in the corporate rooms that you've been in? What are you hearing in terms of everything that you just heard Shelley talk about? Where is that kind of being implemented from their perspective?
Yeah, no, great question. So what I'm seeing a lot of is, and I think with very good justification, is a lot of fear. And it's fear on many different levels. Pressure from the board to do something, everyone's reading about AI, taking jobs, creating efficiencies, productivity, all of that. So management teams are feeling the pressure to show movement, which is why everybody went through that. Let's sign up for ChatGPT enterprise licenses before we figured out our use cases. So that's sort of the first fear piece. What I'm also seeing is a lot more, and Amit touched on this morning, a lot more nimble competitors suddenly sprouting up like weeds, where they don't have, it's sort of not just legacy tech debt, it's legacy workflow debt that they do not have. And so they're able to start AI first and penetrate markets in a way that legacy large businesses simply cannot pivot. It takes a mile for an Air Force carrier to turn. Large organizations are facing that challenge and recognizing that it's hurting them, that they can't move faster. And then the final thing that I'm seeing a lot of as I talk to companies is everyone's in denial about the change. And I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but there are going to be massive changes in the workforce in corporate America and around the world. It won't happen as quickly as it may, and for some of the reasons that Shelley talked about. But those changes are coming, and they're going to be winners and losers. Just like in the 1930s with the Model T, it changed the philosophy of management in corporate America. So a lot of change coming our way.
All right, so let me come down. We'll go, Greg, Amit, and then we'll bring it back to Shelley. Greg, we've been talking about data for 3 decades at this point, and everyone's talking about AI, but at the heart of it is data. And so it is always fun to ask, how is your data house? And most executives will tell you they don't have their data house in order. So how are folks, with the folks that you're talking with, how are they going to be able to do anything that, people are saying that all the magic with AI when they don't have their data house in order?
Great question, Steve. I don't know how they're going to do it if they don't have their... Look, there's so much transition happening at one time that I think it's, I said half as a joke, but I was serious about it. If you watch what's happening with Trump and Musk right now, I think that there are larger existential...
Highly entertaining, if you haven't been watching.
Hugely popcorn moment. But the question from how boards and C-suite are thinking about data, I think you have to think of it within the context of everything else that's happening to the business, all the geopolitical pressures that are happening. We are still in the midst of this tariff war, right? And so I share that to say that it is extremely confusing as to how companies are thinking about their data. So first you have all these existential things happening at one time, these geopolitical pressures that are happening, these economic pressures that are being pushed down on the companies. Then you also have every single major technology company continuing to innovate every single day. So it's difficult for technologists to even understand what these models can do. We know that there is a debate between open source and closed source. We know that there is a space race between what China is doing.
Is there really a debate? We know who's going to win that debate, right?
Well, it remains to be seen, Stephen. I mean, I think again, the question, and I come back to, again, Elon Musk and what he's trying to do with XAI and what his relationship is with OpenAI. I think that it's the unknown, right? It's the unknown as to which models will succeed. And Shelley, I will easily say that Shelley knows best, and anyone in the technology industry that I've had the pleasure of working with. My perspective on Google is I don't know if Google will be broken up, right? I think there certainly was inklings of that, in the early stages of the Trump presidency. And so I think that we're going to have to look at this next 6 months. We're going to have to look at tomorrow and see what happens, with XAI. You have to remember that Elon is trying to build the everything company, not just the everything app. You've got Neuralink, you've got SpaceX. So your specific question about data is nobody has it completely figured out. But I think from the C-suite down is they have so many other pressures that they're dealing with. This is just one of.
And I'm going to let Shelly answer the open source question when we get to him, but let me just get to Amit. So Amit, everyone's talking about agents. Obviously, you have one of the hottest, kind of startups focused on, agentic AI. But we're still at this point where it's so early, standards aren't even really introduced, but we know it's coming. And so I think, it's almost like a two-part question. One, when you start to see that the agent is going to be more important than your website, more important than an app, and when that is going to be what determines how a brand interfaces with consumers, and by the way, consumers, they're not just going to have one or two, they'll have tens or maybe hundreds of agents. What do you really see the role for a lot of the people in the room? Because, we kind of joke at the Ad Council, like every year that we go, it's kind of like I see dead people. There are just going to be fewer and fewer jobs, and that is just truth. So how do you view the opportunity of agentic AI, but at the same time, how is it going to actually wreak havoc in this industry?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's something at the top of my mind, being an ex-operator, having dealt with that. And, we have some of our close customers in the room as well, and we were talking through this experience. And I think what I find is that this is the first pivotal moment a lot of us have faced, where we are not only going to be evaluated on the skill sets that we staff the team with, but what's the mindset that we are promulgating through the organization. Because we have always thought that, you can get closer to a competitor, you can get closer to a functional endpoint that you might have picked up. So as I progressed through my career, from sort of a director of like product on mobile, marketing, then I became the CMO president. It was always around like, how do I build those relationships? How do I bring those skills in? How do I be a change agent? But with agentic AI, what I find myself is more often than not, and this is what I find and learn from our customers as well, they are really looking for a mindset change. And that manifests in many different ways. The first is speed to outcome. I think we had the rare opportunity in the previous changes of state to kind of maybe even watch from the sidelines and then start picking up pace and doing it. But if you're literally not, to what Shelly was imploring us to do, if you're literally not thinking about these things consciously on a day-to-day basis and taking the steps, you cannot catch up with mindset, because it's not something you can go out and externally acquire or internally just get to a point. It is a lived state of being that you have to, both from a leadership level, we heard from Andy sort of imploring us the same way, right? He's starting to use it. I know Rajiv is talking about, being the user first instead of just asking someone to do it or hiring someone young on the team and be like, they must have figured out AI. Like I remember hiring a really young person when I was like, I can't figure out TikTok. I just need to hire someone who does that. AI is not that. So I think this is, if there's one message I took away when I started the company, was this has to be like front, right, and center, not just how we think about ourselves, but anyone we bring on the team. I think the foundational question should be, is this person truly incremental to my mindset? And will they set up a collective mindset internally without getting into the politics, without getting into the drag coefficients? And that, I think, is what I find so fascinating and so required at where we are.
So, Shelly, let's bring it home so that we could all have some drinks and continue this conversation. But, what you're seeing is a collective community here that AI Trailblazers has really brought together. You have subject matter experts in the room. I see Dominique here in the front row, who's amazing. We have Alvin, who's my partner at Alpha, where we focus on, boards and AI governance. But, we are seeing this move at exponential speed. And I don't think people understand the moment that we're in. And it's hard because you see everyone kind of poo-pooing it, saying, oh, you know, the hallucinations, the agents don't work, all the things that are wrong, but as we always talk about, today's the shittiest that it'll ever be. Help us understand, you know, there's been all these kind of reports about, if you haven't read AI 2027, which is done by some of the research scientists that used to be at OpenAI, they talk about where this is going to look like in the next 12 months, and the next 24 months. I mean, geez, you saw NVIDIA's numbers, you know, last week. They haven't even installed Blackwell. It's not even online yet. And we haven't even seen that type of, you know, compute power powering the next generation of models. So give us a little bit of a peek in terms of where is the puck going? Where do you think we will be 12 to 24 months from now, shall we?
Okay, who knows what happens next year? Let's talk 90 days. First of all, AI is not overhyped. It is underhyped in the extreme.
Dr. Eric Schmidt agrees with you.
Absolutely underhyped. I want to just clarify a couple things. There are a dozen elite data sets in the world, and they are owned by, for all intents and purposes, private human beings. Grok has every tweet ever, every video from every Tesla ever driven, 100% of the data going through the constellation of Starlink, which Elon owns privately. This is an elite data set. Google, we've all been logged into Google for the last 20 years. There's no one in this room. Google knows everything about you, including how you type. Facebook knows how you want to present yourself, your presentation of self in everyday life. Mark Zuckerberg knows across your entire psychographic. There's nothing you can hide from Mark Zuckerberg. It's what you aspire to be. He knows. Amazon knows everything you've ever thought about buying, ever. And it goes on and on. There are like a dozen, and you can go down to Baidu and Tencent. Most people in this room don't deal with Baidu and Tencent. So data is being, the game of data is being played by an elite group that very few people in this room have any inkling or understanding of. Why is AI now? Has anybody thought about why it's right now? It was invented in the 40s. First perceptron, 43. It was the Office of Naval Intelligence, which ultimately became DARPA. Why was there an AI winter for 30 years where nothing happened in AI? And why an explosion now? Well, in 2008, everybody in this room got a mobile phone and started to create data exhaust at a level that no one had ever seen on Earth before. Your iPhone, if you're wearing an Apple Watch, the XML file off your Apple Watch in your iPhone is 70,000 data points per day, per person. And it's all collected by Apple. All of it. Every bit for their use. How are they screwing the pooch right now and being so far behind in AI that no one can believe it? They fell asleep at the wheel. Or maybe they don't think that they're going to worry about it because late mover advantage is going to work for them. So there's about a dozen elite data sets, and they are biased. Really biased. I want you to think about that for 1 second. OpenAI scraped the entire internet, as did every other foundational model on Earth. They scraped the entire public web for everything. In order for OpenAI to sell this to consumers, the first thing they had to do was remove all the porn. That's half the internet. Went away. Boom. Then they had to take out as much hate speech as they could figure out. That's another third. Then they had a problem. These are word calculators. Well, word calculators calculate the next best token. How does that mean? Man plus medicine equals doctor. That's great. Okay, that's what the internet says. So woman plus medicine equals nurse. Well, that's not true in the United States. I have to post-train my model now. I have to make it lie. Remember HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey? It was taught to lie. It went crazy and killed the astronauts. You're teaching these models to lie for your own benefit. So every model is fit for purpose. Grok is less filtered. It's got a bunch of tweets. That doesn't make it not useful. In fact, it may be more useful. It's more honest. At least it's honest in a very specific kind of way. Xi Jinping said that every model built in China must, by law, exhibit proper socialist values. I don't know what those are. Doesn't sound that good to me. But that's what the Chinese models are going to be doing by law. So every model you choose and pick, every model in your model garden is going to be fit for a different purpose. What Greg was talking about is really important, and the question's really important. Your knowledge base, your personal knowledge base, that's your elite data. And in the presence of the foundational model of choice, properly embedded, properly post-trained, you now have a superpower. You have a way to automate you've never had before. Anyone who understands this or says they understand the future state of this is lying. But it's very powerful in just in its concept, it's very powerful. So where does this leave us? It leaves us in a really interesting place. And if I was going to have, you have one takeaway from a day of AI, and any day of AI, it would be the following. We are about to experience a set of behavioral changes that we are unlikely to understand. And they are going to come at a speed we are not used to, and in fact are unlikely to understand, or we're going to react as opposed to respond. And so and those are very different words, and what I tell my clients and my children and my family and the people I love is that you have to learn to respond to this, not react to it, which means you have to inject yourself in the process. There's no holy book about this. There are no secret words. Nobody knows any more than anybody else. No one is capable of knowing more than anyone else. If you can watch YouTube, if you can read a blog post, if you can sit down hands-on keyboard and goof around with one of the models or all the models, you owe it to yourself to do it every single day until you can't take it anymore. And you may think it's nonsense, in which case you'll be coming from a place of personal experience, and you'll have your own intellectual framework to say, this is nonsense. But I don't think you will say it's nonsense. And your experience with this every day, that's actually going to shape the future, and it's the only way the future gets shaped. You have to take it upon yourself. I know it sounds like lip service. I am telling you, you guys are the architects of the future that we're going to live in. So let it be the future you want to live in. And it starts literally with you and your family and your children, one keystroke at a time. And I beg you, get involved, because you're the group that can actually make this happen.
Well, so cheers to that. That's your takeaway. Let's do rapid fire lightning round. Greg, key takeaway for all the folks in the room to take back to the office tomorrow.
So I'm optimistic on where things are going, but I also want to bring up Andy in my conversation with him today said privacy is dead. We're talking about all of the data that is in the universe today. What we haven't talked about with Elon Musk is what is he going to do with the Doge data that he has collected over the past couple of months. So
collected or stolen?
Well, remains to be seen. I'm reading the book about Joe Biden now and the misplaced classified materials. Look, I mean, the takeaway is that we're entering into a new paradigm. As Shelley was saying, you have to embrace the unknown. But I'm having many conversations with people that have seats on Blue Origin or the next spacecraft because they think they're going to be living in a very different world than we are in today. And so what I would say is the key takeaway is we're in a period of rapid change, and let's make it a world that we want to live in.
Amit?
Very simply, like I feel as an operator and someone who is mildly skeptic when I hear so much hype. I just feel like, to Shelley's great point that he was saying, like, get moving. I think the cost of not moving is so foundationally higher. And I'm really proud of, like, even like people in this room, when I hear the conversations and probing, and that's why we built out this community as well. We really felt we are at a point of time where I was saying at the beginning of the day, AI is not just a story, it is a story of our times. And I think the only way to be a part of that story versus becoming a story is to get moving and participate and talk and be vulnerable.
I love that. Shiv, bring us home.
Gosh, with this esteemed fellow panelist, that's a hard challenge.
But you have the accent.
So thank you.
We're good.
I'll lean heavily on that.
As I said the other day, AI is actual Indian.
Yeah. So, there's a new book that just came out, and the book is called The Have-Yachts and the Haves. So Shelley was talking earlier that there are 15 people in the world that control the future and the data and have all the AI. That's a very real thing and a very real risk. Having said that, I fundamentally and deeply, deeply believe, and is also part of the reason why we formed AI Trailblazers, is that the have-yachts are going to run the world end to end if we operate as individuals. But when we come together as groups, as a community, not just marketers or product leaders or technologists or sociologists or psychologists or whatever our role is in life, but when we come together, we're an equal force. And especially if we operate, and this goes to the core values of AI Trailblazers, which we shared at the start of the day, especially if we prioritize humans first. We're at a very unique moment in time where we still have human agency as individuals, but more so collectively. And it's that opportunity, for our children's sake and their children's and our descendants, that we hold on to that agency. I can't say that with more emphasis. That's one piece. The second piece, which I want to draw from what Mark Nelson said this morning when I interviewed him. For those who weren't in the session, he's the Chief Consumer Products Officer at Visa. In the corporate world, he talked about how at Visa already, and I worked at Visa, and it's a large traditional organization. He talked about how the business owners are now writing the first draft of the code. Historically, we'd create the specs or set the strategy, and then we'd ship it to India for the code to be written, or elsewhere in the world. Now the business owners are writing the first draft of the code. That's super interesting. The technologists are doing the content language translations in turn. Functions are collapsing. The phrase cross-functional is actually going to move out of our vocabulary because we're going to be working so much more collaboratively in the future. And there'll be winners in this business era, and there'll be losers. And I truly believe all of us together, learning from one another, just as in life, and also in the corporate context, can be on the winner's side if we learn together.
I love that. I'll just share my takeaway. I think, almost like a decade ago, actually Shelley, myself, Caroline Everson, Ross Martin, some other folks, we formed something called the Gun Safety Alliance. And the spirit behind that...
Greg. Yeah.
And Greg. But the spirit behind that was really strength in numbers. And the ability for us to convene at this moment, I truly ask, because we are going to start to see the rise of the white-collar gig economy. It's out there. It's really very subtle because, it's 5,000 here, 3,000 here. Today, P&G just let go, I think, 9,000 folks. You're starting to see it. And the irony is the first real function to go 100% automated is coding. So, a lot of those folks are now kind of figuring out, okay, how do I reposition myself into product? What you're going to see is what really is going to be the last line of defense. I think it's going to be twofold. It's going to be brand, and it's going to be UI, UX. It's going to be about the user interface, a little bit of what Shelley was referring to, because you're going to have all these new modalities. But when you understand the power of brand is going to now matter more than ever, and we have to rethink the way that we're going to be interfacing with all this, especially as you start to see voice, agents, and we haven't even really scratched the surface on robotics because the robots are coming. So with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg, Amit, Shiv, for bringing us together for AI Trailblazers. And thank you, Professor Palmer, for bringing it home.